Hey, what is going on, guys? Spike Pete here, bringing you some more Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Today's episode is a game of domination on Detroit using the STG-44 smokeless variant. This is I believe it's a 25 and 15, but don't quote me on that. So, in today's episode, I wanted to discuss why it is that time flies. Now, to start off, I've got some experiments, and then I have, kind of at the end, a summary of the theories, and I might include some of my opinion about it at the end. We'll see how time goes. So, I hope you enjoy the gameplay. Be sure to like the video if you do, comment down below, and subscribe for more. Let's get into it. Okay, starting off the experiments, in the 1890s, you have William James, who is the author of The Principles of Psychology, which is one of the biggest books in the psychological realm of the time. It was one of the bigger ones to come out in general for psychology. Now, kind of his big theory for the book in this section of how we judge time is the fact that as you get older, you have fewer and fewer firsts. And by that, it's when you're in high school. You have your first day of school, your first big test, your first kiss, your first date, your first homecoming, your first prom. All those things. You have so many firsts, and they're packed in. It's just like every single month you got something big happening. Whereas what he had to say about getting older is that the days and the weeks smooth themselves out, and the years grow hollow and collapse. Yes, very morbid, very just sad, but it's so true. Most of your days is being an adult, especially in the US. I don't know about a whole lot of the rest of the world, but US, you get up at 7. You might eat breakfast, depends on what kind of person you are.
Damn it.
Go to work. You sit there for 2, 3, 4 hours. Go to lunch. You get back after half an hour. You go do some more work. Very depressing unless you're doing stuff outside of your daily working. And that's pretty much the entire thing he was saying. Now, the next theory to come out wasn't until the 1960s, at least the bigger ones. There's probably, any given moment, there's at least 100 people with a thought. But the bigger one was in the 1960s, and it was Wallach and Green. And what they did is, they took these groups of people. They had young people, and you're talking probably your 18, 19s, 20-year-olds, and your older people, which are your 50s and up, pretty much. There's not a whole lot of reason to list those. And basically what he found is that what they did is they took metaphors, and they had these metaphors revolving around time, and they asked these people to choose the one that they felt the most connected to. Now, I have a criticism for this one that I believe might be a flaw, but these are very well-respected psychologists, so I believe that they have an excellent point, excellent reason they justified this. But if you look at it, this was the 60s. Now, I wasn't alive during the 60s, but I happen to know all the stereotypes of the 60s people. Your younger people were very peace-loving, very much, they saw everything as peaceful. So the fact that they chose the metaphor of time as a quiet and motionless ocean, I feel might be a little biased. Just me. But then you have the older people who are choosing things such as time is a speed train, which I think also you can look at, they were biased as well, because you're talking about these people who, especially in the 60s, most of these people were they'd gotten back from World War II, and most of their life was just gone. They were over fighting a war for so long. And then when they get back, the whole U.S. is totally different. U.S. is a totally different place, yet they weren't there for any of it. And you see all these people, they're coming back having gone through so much trauma. The time is so much more because they went through so many traumatic events that to them time feels longer. And this is part of why they see time as being something that is speeding away from them. It's because they missed out on just a huge chunk of their life. Now, moving on from the 60s, there's not as big a gap. Now, going back just for one moment, totally respect these two psychologists. They are very intelligent guys. They are very smart. I believe that they probably accounted for this, and that this is something that they acknowledge. No, this is something we've been seeing for years, but it was published in the 60s, so there's that. The next one in the 90s, so only a 30-year gap instead of the huge 70-year from the last experiment. So in the 90s, Hubert, I believe that's how you say it. I'm guessing it's a European name that's not an English pronunciation. So Hubert. And he kind of expanded on this thing. And he looked at the way younger people, and he asked them, and basically they all agreed to this, the fact that they expected to see time as moving faster the older they got. And I thought this was really interesting. In comparison, it's not a huge experiment, but it's a huge point that he made about the way people perceive the way they perceive time over time. Yeah, tongue twister right there. Now, jumping from 1990, you go into 2005, which is only 10, 11 years ago, so not that long ago. You had Mark Whitman and Sandra Lenoff. And what they did is they got this group, and I think it was about 500 people, aging from 14 years old to 94. And what they did is they gave them this questionnaire, and they asked them a bunch of questions, and this was on top of the previously used metaphors. So they gave them both of these things. And what they found is with this questionnaire is that there was a very weak correlation between how old people are and how they perceive time to be passing. And kind of what they saw is that, yeah, from 14 to about 50 years old, this is true. You are seeing some correlation here. But the problem is once you hit 50, you don't see that anymore. And this is kind of the first time that this idea of time pressure starts to pop up. And what this is it's this idea that I have so much to do. I have to do X, Y, and Z, but I only have enough time to do one of them. And you have this stress, and this stress builds up from people who are at work from 9 to 5, and when they get home, oh, guess what? Sally needs to go to soccer. Brandon needs to go to baseball. Honey, can you fix that garage door for me? And your time's just gone. You don't have any time to do all these things that you want to do. And this is the first time that this comes up. Now, from that initial experiment, the two guys, William Friedman and Steve Jansen, came in about 2010, and they built off of this. And what they did is they took this group of 49 undergraduate students. So talking, those of you who don't know, undergraduate is the first 4 years of college. It's your bachelor's degree. It is people probably 19, 20 to 24-ish. So you're very young, and about 50, 60 to 80-year-olds. And what they did is they asked them about 12 current events from the last decade. And what they found is, by asking these people about all these things, you notice that they all have a very good recollection of time. There is no difference in that. They all understand the way all these things happen. They understand it. They know about it. But the thing that's different is that the younger these people got, the more likely they were to misjudge time. The more likely they were to not see time accurately. Now, off of this big experiment, they were more likely to misjudge time. But what they did is they took and they teamed up with Makiko Naka, a Japanese student or professor. I'm not entirely sure which. But they teamed up with him, and what they did is they looked at the same thing of time pressure, and they looked at it across multiple different nations, and they found that it is the same regardless. Whether you're in the US, Germany, Austria, Denmark, Japan, New Zealand, all these places, they still saw time exactly the same. And that it's the time pressure that affects the way we see time regardless of culture. And the fact, kind of what this was, is the fact that in the short term, in the last week, month, days, years, even going back into decades, over this amount of time, you see that people view time as being very short, as being something that's speeding away from them, based on how much pressure they're feeling. Now, that is all of the experiments, and now I'm going to jump into, for the last, I think I got 53 seconds left, real quick summarizing of the theories. The first one is that we judge time by the memorable events. This is your first kiss. All these moments are packed in. You can't relive all 4 years of high school. So we just take, and our brain naturally highlights, okay, this, and this. That's all that's important. So we see that time is just being collapsed because we're not actually remembering all of it. The second one is that time is relative to your age. And that means that basically at 5 years old, 1 year of your life is 20% of it. That's such a huge amount of your life. Yet at 50, 1 year is just 2%. Another one is that as you get older, your biological clock is slowing down. So as your biological clock slows down, the world is still going the same speed. So it seems like the world is going so much faster. Another one, second to last, is that we pay less attention to time the older we get. The older we get, we see time as, oh, that should take me 10 minutes. And when we look up and see that it took us 20 minutes to do that task, it seems like, holy crap, time just went so fast. And finally, the final one is that stress. Stress at your job, in your life, and just the fact that as you get older, your body is breaking down. You can't do things as well. That's all the theories, guys. This is Why Does Time Fly? If you like the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up down below. Comment down below. Let me know what you